This week we're looking at a loaded question in John chapter 7, verse 15. Let's start out with some context and we'll read 14 and 15 from the ESV. About the middle of the feast, Jesus went up into the temple and began teaching. The Jews therefore marveled, saying, "How is it that this man has learning when he has never studied?" So it happens in the middle of the feast. What feast? We're at the Feast of Tabernacles. And during the feast, we're told that Jesus taught in the temple courts, and the Jews marveled at what he said. Which Jews? Are we talking about all the Jews, every single Jew? No, it's a catch-all term for the significant people in attendance. By significant, I mean priests, scribes, politically powerful and important people. It's like a catch-all term for the influential and powerful people in and around the life at the temple, which was the economic and cultural center of Jewish life in the first century. So this is a group that is not what's the word I'm looking for? It's not all inclusive. It's not every person, but it's those who typify the leadership culture and the important movers and shakers there in Jerusalem and in Jewish culture. And what are some of the characteristics that they have in common? When it comes to teaching, they namely share a characteristic that is about evaluating teachings and teachers. The model of teaching at the time in Jewish culture relied heavily on citation and affiliation. Who said it first? Who did you study with? Where did you learn this? And if you were citing important people from the right school of thought, from the correct rabbinical tradition, then what you said carried weight. Someone who didn't have that same tradition or didn't have that command of citation of people who went before was sort of discounted. So when somebody shows up and speaks and isn't affiliated with the right people and the right schools, whether they be formal or informal, and doesn't rely on citation of people who are probably deceased already, they are discountable. And that's part of the culture. And to show you that that's part of the culture, I want to jump out of John for a second and take a look at Matthew 7:29 to see what was said about Jesus. So Matthew 7:29 says, "And when Jesus finished these sayings, the crowds were astonished at his teaching, for he was teaching them as one who had authority and not as their scribes." And "as" here could be translated like. So his teaching differentiated from the common teachers of the people in the sense that he taught as one with authority rather than as being reliant on citation and affiliation. Jesus didn't stand up and say, "We know this to be true because Rabbi Shemel said so. Rabbi Gamaliel teaches this." He stood up and just said it. And they found that amazing and astonishing because they were accustomed to teachers who didn't speak with authority but relied on the authority of others. The appeal to authority is a rhetorical fallacy where you say, "You should believe what I say because I am quoting so-and-so, and so-and-so is an authority, so you should believe me because I quoted so-and-so." So Jesus stood out in Matthew 7 as well as in John 7. Jesus stood out as a teacher because he didn't rely on an appeal to external authority in the way that the people were accustomed to it. So back in John 7, we're told that the Jews marveled at Jesus' teaching, and let's look at the nature of that astonishment in Koine. So here we have it. Pos hutos grammata oiden me memathekos. So pos is how, hutos, this man, oiden, skip over to oiden, knows. How does this man know? Because this is a question. How does this man know grammata? So he knows some things, and the things that he knows is grammata. Grammata is an anarthrous, no article, plural. So it's indefinite or qualitative. Here it's almost surely indefinite. And it's plural, and it comes from the same root as the word writing or scripture, and it also comes from the same root as the people known as scribes that we heard about in Matthew 7. How is it that this man knows writings, words, letters, scriptures? And in the context of teaching in the temple, we know that this would be Old Testament scripture and commentary about it. How does he know these things? And then the last two words of the verse, me memathekos, so me negates the participle, the perfect participle, memathekos, that comes from manthano. Manthano means I learn by instruction. So here, the negated perfect participle literally means not having formal instruction, not having education, formal education. So they look at Jesus and his teaching and they say, how is it that this man knows the writings, the scriptures, and the commentary about the scriptures while he lacks a formal education, not having instruction? So in the culture, in the time, in the place, a lack of a formal education, a lack of an academic pedigree, a lack of an affiliation with a prominent rabbinical school makes a teacher at least questionable. And if the teacher is questionable, the teachings can become questionable. That's why the culture relied on citation. I don't have to trust you if the basis of your teaching is someone renowned and trustworthy. So the appeal to authority has a positive aspect in that sense, right? Don't believe me, believe sainted Rabbi Shammai. Believe the guy that we all hold in esteem who said X, Y, Z. That way, it doesn't matter that you are, that I'm young, or that I haven't published, or that I never served on an important council. That you don't have to worry about that, because I'm not basing my teaching on me. I'm basing it on important, recognized scholars who went before. So now, if they had a concern about Jesus as a teacher, one might argue that it's a healthy concern. They feared that he's a persuasive sounding teacher, but what if his teaching is baseless? He didn't go to the right school. He doesn't quote the right rabbis. He just talks. And now we get to see the reaction, according to John, that Jesus has to their questioning about his education. So look at verses 16 and 17 from the ESV, and bear in mind that the concept, both positive and potentially negative, is the appeal to authority. So verses 16 and 17. So Jesus answered them, my teaching is not mine, but his who sent me. If anyone's will is to do God's will, he will know whether the teaching is from God or whether I am speaking on my own authority. So he says to those who were marveling at his teaching, don't be astonished. It's not from me, but he who sent me. So if the issue is, whether positive or negative, an appeal to authority, Jesus answers the appeal to authority by citing not a dead rabbi, but the ultimate authority, the living God. He says, I am citing the one who sent me, not the leader of the camps that you guys are in theologically. pretty magnificent way to use an appeal to authority, the ultimate authority, some would say, to defeat questions about an appeal to authority. Pretty wild, pretty great stuff. All based in that simple little question: how does this man know the scriptures, not having studied, not having been instructed formally in grammata, the scriptures, the letters, the words, the writings in the proper context here, in the messages about God's will for his people? Well, the reason you can trust my teaching is the one that I'm quoting is the one who sent me, says Jesus, according to John in chapter 17. On Wednesday, we're going to look at our word of the week, which is also going to come out of this same context. Jesus teaching at the Feast of Tabernacles. And another question will come up, not from the leaders, but from the people. And we'll handle that on Wednesday with the word of the week. And until then, Karis Kairene Humin, grace and peace to you.